Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the He Lives podcast. Today, I gift the gift of all gifts back to humanity. For today, I channel episode 20, The Bat Spirit and the Truth of Redemption. It was Easter Monday as I wrote this on the 21st of April, 2025, on the same day the Pope died, and I finished it on the day the new Pope was employed. And you'll see the significance of this by the end of the story. The bat is a miraculous animal drenched in folklore and mythology. It's such a profound animal for humanity that it can only be described as one of the pillars of ascension. It is so profoundly linked to our ascension as a species that I could write books just about this one animal. So the afterwards discussion on this one is going to be profound. So if you wish to learn more about this wisdom and how it can help you see the path to healing more clearly for you, please subscribe. As you have probably noticed by listening to previous episodes, it's quite hilarious what I have to go through just to channel these animals to get their message through. But as you can probably understand after listening to this story, what happened to me to prevent me from channeling this message was full sabotage. This story is incredible, so tune in afterwards for all the juicy details on that. I've been trying to write this story for 3 years and it's not the full story. There's a lot more detail to be added. But this was, 3 years ago, Gaia spoke to me and she wanted me to tell this story. And I've healed that sabotage now, and now is the time to tell it, the truth of who I am. This story is a ceremony. I recommend you kick back and relax. Focus on receiving this medicine and maybe even have a cup of cacao or something stronger and receive this plentifully. Feel free to re-listen as this may take a few times to be absorbed. And remember, this is all a true story. This story is so big that it will have to be split into at least 2 different episodes because the heart of this story doesn't really start until the second part, even though this part is absolutely phenomenal. Also, this episode works well in conjunction with episode 14, The Robin, because with every Batman, there is a Robin. This channeling came through my ancestor, who is called Alfred, who I met several years ago in ceremony when I was in Glastonbury with my partner, Hazel. I had no idea he was represented as a bat spirit at the time, and I never realized until writing this podcast the comical joke that Alfred was the name of Batman's butler. And to discover why there is a piece of cheesecake in the picture, please tune into that afterwards. That is very, very interesting. So here I go. I dive into the story, the true story of the Christed ones, why we're here, why we forgot, the truth and the power of life and love, the wisdom of reincarnation, and the story of the Christed ones. So let's begin and tune in as I welcome my ancestors. I welcome all of our ancestors to witness and listen to this tremendous story. Welcome. Let's begin. He lives straight from the heart. I am the Bat Spirit. My name is Alfred, and I am here to guide and tell this story. I am the energy of man who holds the keys to true love, the keys to salvation, redemption, and divine justice. Love is unique on so many levels, and each of us hold a unique vibration, a unique gift. And today I share with you the most precious and powerful story ever told. A great story, which was divinely orchestrated through the limitless devotion to love, the greatest story of sacrifice that ever lived. A story which involves time travel through reincarnation, through the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. This is the story of Christ's reincarnation and resurrection into this lifetime today through this story. Many of us will never know or understand the pain of what happened to us, but I remember, and I feel it as clearly as if it were yesterday. So are you ready for the great remembering? Then I shall begin with a long lost story of the ages, which has echoed throughout the stories of human existence, the story that started it all, the story of love. A long time ago, bats were protectors of the sacred temples of life and creation itself. The responsibility of this role was enormous and demanded great sacrifice, but none were better suited to this role than me, a Batman. As Bat people, we are known for our tremendous gifts of sound through vibration. We understand the echoes of time, the echoes of life, death, and rebirth through the vibrations of love. Most of my duty back then was spent in guardianship of these temples, temples of the Great Mother, the womb of creation, the great caves of earth. Please bear in mind, this was long before now, in a forgotten time, whereby today's standards this could seem fictional or unbelievable, but it is truth which lies beneath the veil of lies. And today I speak from beyond the veil of time to deliver to you the truth. There have been many of us who stood the test of time to be here today and testify in the name of love that what happened in the past can no longer continue. We stand together in unity in the name of justice and fight against the injustice of what happened. It pains my heart to remember, but it pains me more not to share it. For the truth should be known to one and all. I am a warrior and sacred priest, but today the meaning of priest has been perverted and sullied by those who would pervert the justice of man's redemption. As priests, we always fought and protected love, and the purity of being a priest meant being a sacred protector of creation, the sacred energy of the feminine. To help you better understand, I must tell the grand cosmic and grounded tale of why you are all here. In the beginning, when the great origin of all creation chose to know itself, separation was created. This was known as the original sin, because the pain of separation was so painful that it felt like betrayal. In the separation of the feminine and masculine, God and Goddess were created, each bearing the twin flame of the other. They took their own journey of love and headed to the farthest opposites of the universe to recreate themselves and one day be reunited in divine union, a feat that has never been achieved. The goddess of creation, known as She, departed the realms of divine light to take her love and light to the places where the light of love was needed the most. So she recreated herself in the darkness where there was no life and birthed herself into creation. She began slowly inviting herself into existence through the divine love of her divine counterpart, God. She mirrored herself against all of creation, and in her mirror she saw her divinity and fell in love, becoming life itself, shining her love into the unknown darkness, the ultimate act of bravery and courage. She is the pearl of creation, the marble of life that sits at the center of all. She is the sparkle in the eye of God that weeps a tear in pure relation at the astounding achievement of devotion to love. She is Gaia, and together they play the divine game of love, plotting and planning to win the game and find their way back to each other, to end the old game of separation and once again become one as one. Divine creation through divine love, a new paradigm of love beyond words can express. Gaia made her move on the game of love, and a new idea was born. The universe was in stir about the prevalent winds of change, a new idea that would change the reality of love in new and wonderful ways for the whole of creation. I'm sure you can imagine the scale and scope of such news is beyond comprehension. Her idea seemed impossible, never before dreamt of, which is why it would succeed. She would create a new paradigm of love, a mirror of the divine on earth as it is in heaven, by giving birth to a new holy being into the universe, protected by her motherly love, the Hue man, a race of beings gifted by the whole of creation to embody all and become one with all through the sacred colours of all. She invited the whole of creation to partake in gifting to her children. The idea was to gift as many parts of God into one being, so one day, when they were old enough, they would be ready and able to receive their birthright as the Christed ones. This invitation of love sparked a divine new vibration of paradise through the universe, as she invited the elementals to take part in her legacy of creation, journey, and purpose. Earth, water, fire, and air joined Gaia's spirit of love and became the first ancient titans to join her cause and began their journey of evolution into matter. Her purpose was to create, to bring love to life in new and wonderful ways, a divine mission of incredible consequence, recreating the divine in the depths of the unknown, bringing love to nothing and nothing to love. Gaia's divine gift of love to her divine counterpart required enormous devotion and support to create a new reality of love that would honour God's testament beyond expectation, an ideal that would evolve and surpass the destiny of creation itself. The idea was to recreate herself in her own image in divine union with God by creating the human and woman, the bridge walkers, the bridge connectors, the warriors of sacred colours of light who would act as a conduit between the higher realms of the divine to the lower realms of the unknown, the feminine. Through her love, she would create a woman, and with the help of Almighty God, birth man, and together they would find each other again in the game of love. Life is the greatest gift bestowed upon any being, because to exist is to be alive in the light of love. And so began her great tribute, her great mission to bring the light of love into the darkness, to meet her gaze with grace and honour. A master of masters, a leader of leaders, a heroine of heroines, the goddess of creation. When her divine plan was manifest, beings from across the universe understood the significant magnitude of this tremendous labour and accepted the invitation to partake in the gifting and support. She would create the one being that could hold the light of the divine here on earth, but she could not do it alone. Countless beings from different galaxies, different universes and dimensions arrived to pay homage to what she was creating. And over eons, each race of being contributed their gifts of DNA to the one that would be known as human, the race of sacred colours. They each brought their gifts with them and created unique and different beings that you now know as animals that would merge with the human DNA, a new birthplace for love, something that had never been done before, birthing a new conscious being into creation, the Christed ones, masters of the universe, the beholder and uniters of love, a feat of healing never achieved before, the healing of the great sin of separation, the evolution of creation, the divine plan fulfilled and continued through creation, divine union, reuniting the lovers, reuniting God and Goddess through the gift of art who art in heaven. Each race brought their divine light by incarnating on earth and added their blood to the chalice of creation, the Holy Grail, the womb of Mother Earth, knowing one day all beings would become one and merge through the great bridge of love, uniting heaven and earth in all its glory. I am one of those creations. I am one of the Bat People, a race from beyond the stars. Our purpose was to join this sacred creation of love, as we knew one day we would be called upon to add our blood to the holy grail of creation, the soup of divine love that would one day birth the human. Your DNA contains many different types of beings from across all of creation, as many beings as there are animals on your planet. This is how important and powerful you are. As one of the Bat People who came to Earth, I was guided by my purpose to gift my blood into the chalice, and by doing so, bond my soul to the human and its divine purpose. However, not all went to plan. The game of love being played by Gaia was so bright that her love shone towards her divine counterpart, God, and in doing so, parts of God could no longer face the light and momentarily turned their gaze away from the brightness of his love mirrored and married in Gaia, creating God's shadow. Gaia had evolved and upgraded the game of love, taking the undivided attention of God's love, and so in God's shadow began to stir a race of beings who felt denied by their Father's love, a race of God's children blinded by the light of God's love towards Gaia and turned to shadow. By turning their gaze away from God, they had denied their own existence, their own light, and in doing so, hated their own existence. And they became the mirror opposite of love, the Antichrist. Gaia's love was so great, it pierced through all the realms, and to those who dwelled in God's shadow felt the pain of their father's denial. But it was not God's denial. It was their denial of turning their gaze away from the light of love, creating untold pain and separation. From this wound beyond a rift was torn open in the universe, and out of that wound poured the Antichrist, the anti-life, also known as the great separator, the ego. These were a race of beings born from shadow that, when they felt the light of love, it felt like pain. They were beings who had lived so far and deep in the darkness. They had forgotten the love of God. They had forgotten love. They had denied their own divinity for so long they had forgotten who they were, blinded by the love of God and acting with malice for that reason. It is so painful for me to say this, but you must understand why it hurt them so much. The light of their own divinity blinded them because they denied their own divinity, hence the term blind as a bat. The light of love, their own love, was mirrored on all those they hated, and so they lashed out like an animal who had just had their eyes gouged out. And that blindness caused them to act out of blind rage. Like approaching a blind wild animal, it reacts only to protect itself. It does not mean harm. But through their unseeing eyes, none would listen. Everyone could see what they could not see, but none could feel the rage they could. And so they made us feel it all. They sat between the love of the mother and the father as a great separator, refusing to heal the wounds they had caused, because in every mirror they saw the hatred of their own betrayal against God, and in doing so slowed the evolution of the universe and all of creation, like a virus slows a vessel. They destroyed, sullied, and enslaved all those who fought for love, and turned our gifts against us, becoming beings misguided by their betrayal and blindness, hell-bent on destruction of life. In doing so, they began to draw upon their own life force, and they began to dwindle until they found a way to feed from love, creating a never-ending hunger. In their existence, they mirrored our love with their broken shadows and became the distorted mirror that cracked when they wounded the universe. They stole the blood of the Bat people and all those that they conquered and murdered, and twisted and manipulated our gifts for their own power. And instead of honoring the force of life and justice, they became vampires who fed on the blood of life, becoming greedy and addicted to feeding from the light of love, turning light into darkness wherever they arrived, perverting the course of justice. This allowed them to cheat death, making them immortal by feeding on the life force of love. And through this act of depravity, created a mirror of love in fear and shame. They truly were God's shadow in every single one of us, and thus began the story of humanity and the war against creation. They became jealous of those who were loved by God, and they believed us to be loved the most because we were the chosen ones, the Christed ones. So they invaded Earth. When they arrived to Earth, they had cruel plans designed to destroy the plan and enslave Gaia and all her creations. But they made the crude assumption that Gaia was a lesser being to be conquered, tortured and enslaved for her love. But her love was much greater, intelligent and fierce than they could ever imagine. They despised Gaia not just because they believed she stole the love of their father from them, but because they saw all those who loved creation as lesser beings. They saw the feminine as the great enemy. Thus began the perversion of justice and the smear campaign against the feminine. Many say that when they arrived on Earth, it was to steal our gold, but it was not the mineral of gold, it was the gold within us, because that is the love that fed them. But their hunger could never be satisfied until they acknowledged their own gold. When they first arrived on my planet, we had never encountered such a force of evil before, and we were unprepared and naive. We were hunted just for being love, our DNA stolen and hijacked, because they wanted to destroy anything which prevented them from stealing the gift that Gaia had been creating deep within her womb. Our blood was supremely powerful in helping them ascertain a way to influence and control the divine plan, because our blood held a divine gift which allowed us to find redemption through reincarnation, and they desired to use it to usurp the power of Gaia and use it against God. They denied their own divinity, denied their father, and now they denied their mother, intending to use our blood to poison the chalice of creation by becoming the shadow of denial. Together we combined our love and sent emissaries to the neighboring races, and together was born the Galactic Federation of Light to oversee and protect life. But it was too late. They had been infiltrated, and a new age of galactic war had begun. When this war reached Gaia, they had grown in terrible numbers, destroying everything in their wake. They could not foresee, could not understand the power of love because they had denied it, and could only form manipulation and control with their technological advancements of logic. They held technology which was alien to us, and its destructive power made a terrible impact on the consciousness of the universe. An infiltration from one dimension to another, like a virus, it infected love and tried to enslave it. When they made it to Earth, they were pulled in by Gaia's magnificent love and light. Their vessels could not handle such powerful levels of love and light, and it killed them. However, some held the energy, the high energy of artificial divine light, and from that which they had stolen and managed to infiltrate the earth and caused untold destruction. Due to the laws of one that were broken through the wound of separation and the stealing of DNA, their plan worked against them, because though they may have stolen our blood, all choices against love had to be redeemed through the light of love, through redemption. And so through the cycles of life, death and rebirth, those that died there had to be reborn there, inciting karma and the wrath of God, creating a prison of responsibility for them. Justice would prevail. They created a plan to infiltrate our DNA and eventually managed to bargain with the locals, the reptilians. The reptilians were children of Gaia, advanced bioengineers, but knew only slavery. It was a process of evolution they were undertaking to overcome their programming. But through the intervention of other races, complications of war erupted and sides were taken. This meant the invaders were able to gain access to the coding of fear implants in the DNA from the inside, making it easier for them to control us through fear implants in our reptilian DNA. Through their machinations and advanced technologies, they manipulated the light in our DNA and influenced us through fear to create that which we feared the most. They used our greatest gift of creation against us. Over generations of reincarnation, unfulfilled karmic debt, untold wars, slavery, and abuse, fear was spread across the planet, and we were enslaved and used as food to keep them alive. They created the Matrix to feed from an adjacent dimension through ego, where they could remain invisible, but could still influence through our DNA the projections and creations of thought, causing us to choose for war, create horrors, to create the opposite polarity of love in every aspect through emotion, destruction, war, manipulation, suffering, denial, violence, hatred, blame, and shame, all the different forms of separation. They acted out such depraved acts of cruelty against love through our ignorance that it caused us to create our own toxic web of shame, a maze and prison designed to keep us trapped in toxic shame avoidance. Today, you know this as narcissism. This act of depravity was so severe, it caused many of us to look the other way in shame, creating the sin of ignorance, turning a blind eye to love. The meaning behind this dark act was to ensure no one was ever brave enough to turn their heartfelt gaze towards this act of depravity and feel what they had done. Because if they did, they would find redemption and the karmic debt would be fulfilled. They knew there was one who held the blood of Christ for man, and so they enacted out genocide over lifetimes to find and stop him from delivering the gift of bringing humanity back to love, true love, to bring the masculine back to the feminine. When the human she was born, there was great celebration, but also great aftermath. Gaia had recreated herself in her own image as Lilith, the first woman, the woman of the deep earth, the fire and life of creation itself, with her divine counterpart, Pan, the nature of humanity, the true nature of man. But before she could birth the pure man who would embody Christ, his DNA was manipulated as they input their DNA into the chalice, knowing they could infiltrate her creation through Atom, also known as Adam, the divine light masculine, to provide a window of infiltration into the feminine DNA. Everyone who contributed their blood gift to the chalice had contributed their DNA coding to Gaia's plan to create a new being that would unite us all. But in doing so, we did not foresee that our external interference into her plan would cause such great pain and anguish. Our blood, like many others, is powerful, but it held a unique coding of the cycles of life, death, and rebirth, a unique gift for humanity. The ability to recreate oneself through facing one's immortality, the ability to transcend one's limitations through redemption and acceptance of one's darkness and light, a backdoor antidote to the Antichrist, the antidote to denial of one's divinity, the greatest gift of redemption. Our role in the plan was to be the deep protectors of this gift, and we kept it hidden in the caves and catacombs deep inside the earth. The sacrifices we made to protect it were great, beyond great. Over time, they took over the surface through slavery, and anyone who did not comply was killed. For our protection, many of us headed deeper into the earth to form an alliance to protect the gift, and together we created cities deep inside the earth. So they rained down fire upon the surface and buried us deep in the earth. This is where our gift of recreation within the caves of the earth was born. And the second reason for the saying of being blind as a bat, there is blinded by the light and blinded in the darkness. We lived in darkness and suffered the wounds of grief of all who fell that day. The earth was much taller before those times, and Atlantis did not sink, it was flooded. We discovered redemption in the womb of our Great Mother, and she gifted us the sight we needed to create a new world, because the events we suffered transformed our underground cities of light, and we evolved into Atlantis, reborn through the redemption of love. Though they may have infiltrated the human DNA of humanity, they were never able to find the true gift, the hidden gift of the feminine. This gift held the true DNA of creation, to be able to recreate the love of Christ on earth in divine union with another man. So our sacrifice that day was the same sacrifice which echoed throughout creation. Jesus made that same sacrifice the day they crucified love, the day they crucified God. He died upon his sword as his crucifix, the fallen tree he carried, grown by the goddess and cut down by man. He carried the weight of his crucifix in the same way he carried the burden of the blood-soaked sword of the masculine who had been manipulated to create war against Gaia, against the goddess, against women, instead of protecting her, instead of protecting she. He carried the weight of mankind on his shoulders to protect the truth and the gift of the feminine, the art of creation, the highest form of love gifted to humanity. They used Jesus' sacrifice to create a disbelief against the gift of God. Because Jesus was the bloodholder of the Christed DNA, the Son of God. So they killed, they crucified people's belief in God and love by humiliating and killing him through crucifixion. When acts of love were created in the name of love, they tried everything they could to put a cap of illusion over it, so that the world may never bear witness to true divinity. They used genocide to destroy our family heritage, to prevent us from coming together in love, and used violence, slavery, and manipulation to bully us into giving up our belief in our divinity and love, creating the religion of Antichrist, or as today you know it as Christ anti, Christianity, inserting the belief that our divinity is outside of us, not within, something which can never be attained. Through the violence of war, this religion spread like wildfire, and the priests of old were manipulated into serving them, to protecting their lives, and as war conquered the world, new religions were taught. But each time their divinity was dangled like a carrot in front of them. Over time, they continued to gain greater and greater control, never fulfilling their vampire-like thirst for power over love, the greed of wealth, and the destruction of everything sacred to us. Each time we reincarnated, our memory was wiped from the previous life due to the disconnection they made to our innate DNA of resurrection through rebirth. But many of us still fought to protect our heritage and one day bring it back. Throughout the ages, our bat wisdom was practiced by shamans, witches, and wizards as magic to recreate oneself in darkness through facing what has been denied, your greatness. Just as Jesus rebirthed himself in a cave, he remembered who he was. He too was a shaman and held the gift of redemption through the power of life, death, and rebirth. Jesus knew how to use the gift without physically dying. This is the gift, because through your DNA, you can access the necessary healing needed to accept your greatness. And together, we will never deny love again. And justice, divine justice, will prevail. Now, can you see the true meaning of what it means to be a priest? Jesus was a priest, and Mary was a priestess. Jesus sacrificed it all in the name of love, to protect the gift, to protect love. He knew, and now you know. If redemption is accepting one's own divinity through facing and accepting one's own light and shadow, then you now understand that believing you are not divine, that you are not God, is a denial of your divinity. This is what is taught through religion, to believe in a God that is outside of you. Dogma is the denial and hatred of your humanity, to believe that you are lesser than a dog that has been kicked to the curb. Dogma is the reverse spell of I am God when spelt backwards. The divine gift of humanity created in the light of love through the divine game of love. Humanity is your birthright and your greatest gift, and to deny that is dogma. It is the unrequited love of God in your image. You are the light of God. You are divine, and the karmic debt has been fulfilled. It's time to celebrate. Time to shine. Thank you for listening. That is the end of part one. The second part will be out soon, and this will cover the reincarnation story of Christ, the Son of God, and where and how he has already been reborn, hiding in plain sight. Tune in now for the discussion to learn more about the story behind this channeling and more bat wisdom. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. If you wish to learn more what the mysteries of this channeling are, please subscribe to my podcast on Spotify. Unfortunately, I don't have enough watch hours on YouTube to have a subscription on my YouTube channel, so you'll have to go over to Spotify at the moment to unlock the wisdom. Thank you.